Extreme survival. A young man is trapped on the mountain. He is alone. A young woman is lost in the forest. She is also alone. Both face death. Both face death. And both work hard to survive. Today's spotlight is on these two young people and how they survive extremely accidents. In April 2003, Aaron Ralston was 27. He lived in Utah in the United States. He loved to hike, to take long walks in nature. On April the 26th, he went alone. He climbed into a deep, narrow valley. But then he had an accident. A huge rock fell down in the mountain. The rock landed on his hand, crushing it. Rosen was trapped. Rosen had not told anyone where he was going to walk, so he knew that no one would be searching for him. People did not usually hide in the area. He knew that he would die if he could not freeze his hand. He tried to move a rock. He wanted to release his hand. He tried very hard, but he could not move the rock. Finally, on the second day, he considered cutting his arm. But he only had a small knife. He would not cut through the bones in his arm. He struggled to escape for 5 days. Then he had no more water to drink. He was very weak, and he could not think clearly. He thought he was going to die, so he wrote his name on the side of the mountain, and he recorded a final message for his family. Then he went to sleep. The next morning he was still alive. He was very surprised. Suddenly he had new energy. He had a new idea. He decided to use his own body weight to break his bone in his arm. Then he cut off his hand with a small knife. It took him a long time to cut his hand off, and it was very painful. But at last, he was free. But Rosestone was still not safe. He was almost 13 kilometers from his car, and he had no telephone, so he had to go and find help. He climbed down a 19-meter mountain wall. Then he started to walk out of the valley. The sun was hot, and he had no water to drink. He was also losing a lot of blood. But then he found a group of people. It was a family who were on holiday. Then they helped him. They gave him water to drink. Finally, he was rescued. It was 6 hours after arm, cutting off his arm. Later, doctor fitted a false arm to his arm. It includes special climbing tool. It includes special climbing tools, so Resto can still go climbing. He was climbed many mountains since the accident, but now he always tells people where he's going. In December 1971, Julia Capsco was 17. She and his mother and she and her mother was flying home for Christmas. The airplane was over Peru, but the airplane flew into a very bad storm. The airplane went up and down. The lightning hit it. The engines stopped, and the airplane began to fall towards uh, the ground. When it was 3 kilometers above the earth, it broke into pieces. Capscos was still tied into her seat. He fell through the air alone. All she heard was the noise of the wind going past her ears. Then she hit the ground very hard. The seat saved her from being killed, but she suffered a broken bone in her chest. She had deep cuts in her body, and she could not open her right eye. Capo has landed in the Amazon rainforest. She looked for her mother, but she could not find her. She heard rescue airplanes above the trees, but the forest was very thick, so he could not see the airplanes. The rescuers could not see her, but Capco knew how to survive in the forest environment. Her parents were scientists. They studied birds and animals that live in the rainforest, and Capco had lived in the rainforest with her parents. She found a very small river, and she began to walk in it. She followed the direction in the river flowed. She knew it would bring her to people. It also provided her with clean water to drink. However, Capco had no food. She had only few sweet candy trees. She avoided snakes by walking in the water, but she could not avoid insects. They bit her a lot, and the bites became infected. It was very hot and wet in the day, and it was very cold at night. By the 10th day, Capcos was very weak and very lonely. She began walking near a larger river. Then Capcos saw a big boat. She thought she was dreaming. She went to touch the boat. It was real. Near the boat was a sailor. This discovery gave her new hope. She knew that she knew there must be people in the area. Several hours later, some men returned to Sailor. They worked in the forest, cutting trees. They cared for her injuries, and they gave her food. The next day, they took her down the river to find help. The boat trip took 7 hours. Capo's father was waiting for her. They held each other. They still did not know if Keno's mother was alive. There had been 92 passengers and crew on the airplane. Later, they discovered that Capo was only one survivor on the crash. More than 40 years later, Capo spoke to reporters Tom Littlewood. She told him, I had bad dreams for many years. The sadness about my mother's death and that of other people came back again and again. The thought, why was I the only person survivor? Never sleep me. I never will. It never will. Kate, Capo now lives in Germany. She returns in Peru every year. She loves the rainforest and she works to protect it. Rizzo and Capo both had advantages in these situations. They were both young and strong. They both had experience being in the wild places, but they had something else in common too. They both had a strong desire to survive. Do you think that you could survive in situations like this?